Hey, Jamie here, and welcome to part 2 of Module 11, where we're going to talk about long-term momentum. And in part 1, if you remember, we talked about the first 30 days. What this second part is focused on is how do you consistently advance your career and build momentum? So yes, this is going to be focused on the first 12 months of your career, but it's absolutely relevant and applicable to the rest of your career as well, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, as well as the next 30 years. So if you think really quickly kind of back on everything that we've covered so far, modules 1 through 4 were really focused on personal fulfillment, your personal life, as well as your personal performance. Modules 5 through 10 were very focused on advancing your career by getting to the next position, the next company, as well as then finishing with offer negotiation. Now, in Module 11, we're talking about how do you maximize your career and your wealth now that you're there, as well as in Module 12, we're going to be breaking down how to think about long-term financial wealth and generating wealth. So Module 11 and Module 12 go hand in hand. So in this part 2, we're going to understand the 4 most important factors that will determine your long-term career success. And we're also going to understand how to implement strategic planning and the ultimate success formula into your new career path. And if you recall, those were from Module 3. Now, up until this point, we together have covered from, if you see on this line chart, from today to target position, you're now there. You've accepted the offer, you've started the job, or maybe you're about to start. And so now the next strategic planning that you need to focus on is the next 3 years. What am I going to be achieving and accomplishing in the next 12 months? But then again, where will my career be 3 years from now? And if you remember in Module 3, we talked about you're going to have your mentors and the people who you're modeling their success. There's going to be the networking. So think of those as colleagues or other people within the industry. And these may be people only 1 or 2 years ahead of you, or they might be people at other companies, as well as your personal development, continuing to improve your skills, your knowledge. And by building different sets of knowledge, you're going to be cross-pollinating knowledge, which allows you to become more creative. Creativity is the single most valuable thing in the marketplace, but then as well as within your personal development, you want to be focusing on the soft skills, influence, sales, leadership, other forms of communication, written communication, because that's how you implement and execute your creative ideas. And then finally we talked about continuously working towards advancing your career, which is finding career opportunities and then seizing those career opportunities through negotiation. So now the 4 factors that are going to be determining your professional success is going to be your personal performance. And as we've talked about a lot, and as you're consistently tracking in your personal performance tracker, mindset, fitness, diet, and sleep will absolutely determine your life. Now, the reason for that is, again, a core belief that I have, and I've seen it continuously play out with people I've worked with as well as people I know in my life, both personally and professionally. Your professional life is a direct reflection of your personal life. And if you can't get up at the first alarm, it means that you're also procrastinating things in your professional life. If you can't get yourself to do the workouts when you told yourself that you would, it means that you're going to procrastinate and put things off in your professional life as well. You bring yourself to work. You are the same individual in your personal life as you are in your professional life. Now, people like to pretend that they're not, and they put on different faces in their personal life versus their professional life. But they are the same person. They bring the same emotional habits. They bring the same behavioral patterns. They bring the same mindset, and they think the same way. So your professional life is an absolute reflection of your personal life. And that's why you need to master your personal performance. By mastering your body and your mind, you will master your career and perform at a much higher level professionally than other people. And then the second is strategic action. So this is actually doing the work, being disciplined and focused in doing the work, getting results, negotiating for what you believe that you deserve based on your results, and then also making strategic career moves. And that could be advancing and negotiating within the company, or it may be leaving to join another company, or it may actually be leaving to do something with outside of a company. So maybe that's starting your own business or some other type of investment. But strategic career moves are going to need to be planned in your career. And then personal development. So we've talked a lot about personal development, and this is focusing on not only your technical skills, but also your soft skills and communication. Building further bases of knowledge and then being able to cross-pollinate that knowledge for creativity, but then also building experience. And finally is networking. And networking is within your team, it's within your company, it's within your industry, and it's with other people who you believe that those relationships will provide information, resources, and opportunities that perhaps otherwise you would not have had access to or other people will not have access to. So these four, personal performance, strategic action, personal development, and networking, these will give you a competitive edge, a personal edge over everyone else. Especially the more that you think of it it's like a knife. The more that you sharpen that edge, you are going to be able to cut through opportunities and see things and take advantage of things that other people will not be able to. You need to continuously, these four never ever stop. So kind of how you can think about what is seen versus not seen and why so many people don't do what they need to do is because the first three are not seen. Nobody's going to see you doing the work in your personal life. No one's going to see your personal performance. No one's going to see your personal development. And unless it's the person that you're talking to, no one's really going to be keeping track or knowing that you're doing the networking. So these three things, because nobody else sees them, a lot of people believe, well, I'm not paid to do that, so why would I spend more time or invest more time and energy into doing these things when nobody's going to recognize me for it? They're trapped by believing that success is what other people think about them. The moment that you believe your success is defined by other people, you're trapped, because you will always live based on the needs, wants, desires, and the judgments of other people. You will always constantly try to please other people instead of doing what you believe is right or just or worthwhile or what you truly want to do with your life. So know that yes, most of the work that you're going to be doing to advance your life and career, nobody's going to know about. You will be praised in public for what you practice in private. And these three things will allow you to take strategic action that other people cannot. You're going to know more, you're going to have more opportunities, and you're going to have the energy and the confidence and the courage to do things that other people will not be able to do. And I promise you, if you will keep and track and master your personal performance, your fitness, your diet, your sleep, and your mindset, and you continuously invest in yourself and your personal development, so whether that's reading books, studying for a certification, taking an online course, continuing to work with a coach, it's those types of things, even if it's 30 minutes a day, your career and your life will be exponential because you're going to compound your growth when everyone else stays stagnant or linear. Or even worse, they're going to hit that ceiling. So if we think back to the economic value ladder, which we talked about all the way back in Module 1, never forget that your professional career, our goal is to climb this economic value ladder. And if we go, I'm going to use my mouse here. So these little flat parts are the parts where you're going to be in the same position and nobody else knows that you're doing the work. So you're doing your personal performance. You're putting in the hours with the personal development. You're improving yourself and your life and your capabilities. And then you're going to hit a point where you've had phenomenal performance too. I mean, professionally, you've outperformed everyone. You've exceeded expectations. You've done a great job and you know your value. And you know you're more valuable at the end of the year than you were at the beginning of the year. Well, at the end of the year is when you have the opportunity to monetize the value that you've built that year. But in order to monetize the value, you need to be able to negotiate and have difficult conversations and be able to propose what you believe you should be compensated for. And again, that's going to take preparation and practice, which we'll talk about further on in this part too. But never forget that this is what the pay scale looks like. This is how your value is being determined in the marketplace. So underlying here, we talked about how knowledge compounds. And then we also talked about how through personal development, you will compound your value. And most of this value above the technical skill ceiling is creativity. So thoughtfulness, innovation, creative ideas, seeing opportunities that are coming up with ideas or projects that no one else has, but then also leadership and people skills. So being able to lead, influence, sell, and communicate both verbally and written with people and negotiate with people at a level that other people can't. Most of your professional value over and above this technical skill ceiling for whatever industry you're in is going to be based on your mind and your ability to work with people. Okay, now we also talked about in terms of what does it look like and how long does it take for your knowledge and your skills to compound and exponentially grow. Well, anything that grows compounding, there's going to be the investment tail. And if you remember, we talked about how most people quit before they actually begin compounding knowledge. So the example here is someone reads one book. I promise you one book is not going to change your life. But if you read 100 books, your life will absolutely transcend because you're going to be connecting and linking ideas. And the more that you can connect and link ideas, you can visually see and understand and make decisions that other people can't, which makes you more valuable and allows you to accelerate and advance in your career much faster than other people within your industry or within your company. So strategic growth and the economic value ladder go hand in hand. And we got to remember it is a long-term investment in yourself. 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, it never ceases. And then we talked about the ultimate success formula, which is you need to know your outcome. You got to know what goal you want professionally and then find mentors and people who have already achieved this goal. And then once you know who to model, you reverse engineer the steps that you must take in order to get there. Now, we don't want to focus on all the steps because that's when a goal or a project or a long-term dream becomes overwhelming. We see step 7 and we think, how could we ever get there? I'm so far, there's no possible way I could get there. Or we look at even step 4 or 5 and we think that's too much, that's too hard. I can't do that. And so many people beat themselves up and give up because they're focusing on parts that are so far away and they view it as an impossibility, but it's not. Instead, all we need to focus on is step 1. If you will do step 1, achieve step 1, and then realize your progress, reflect, and then say, okay, step 2, what do I need to do for step 2? And the only thing you think about, focus, worry about at all is only step 2, you will naturally continue to advance from step 1 to step 2 to step 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then over time, you will achieve this long-term goal. But most people look at the journey ahead of them all the way to step 7 and they throw in the towel because they realize that's going to take too long. It's too much work. It's not worth it. And they allow their lives to stagnate and stay roughly the same. That's no way to live. Chase your dreams. You can do it. Just focus on step 1 and keep moving forward. So then we talked about how to think about your career and put together, to the best of your ability, the 3-year career plan. Now, when we first brought this up, you did not have the position that you're currently in. You were still shooting for the target position. Well, now that you're in this target position, you now know your starting place. And you can now think ahead, 12 months from now, what's this date? 24 months from now, what's this date? And 36 months from now, what's this date? And now, if you remember, we talked about you want to work from year 3 back to year 2, back to year 1, back to where you are today. So you want to plant the stake in the ground. Where will I be in 3 years? And then you want to think through what strategic actions must I take between months 24 and 36? What personal development must I do between months 24 and 36? And then what type of networking do I do? What relationships do I need to build and strengthen in order to make sure that I'm setting up the right opportunities for myself to get here, this 3-year goal by the end of my 36 months. And then once you've mapped out between years 2 and 3, Then you want to map out between years 1 and 2. And then you want to map out between where you are today and how you're going to get to year 1, the year 1 goal. And then at the bottom, I would recommend reviewing this and describe again why this 3-year goal is so important to you. And then also remind yourself and maybe update or revise this, but assuming it's the same models, you probably won't even need to update this final part because the mentors most likely shouldn't change. So, but again, make sure that you do have mentors who are the people that you look up to, you learn from, you read their books, you study their interviews, you digest their information to learn how did they do it, and you model their success. So at this point, if you have any other questions on this, I recommend going back to Module 3 and rewatching this video where I talk more in depth about this chart. But now that you're in your position, it's really, really important that you do take the time to revise this, to fill it in as much as possible, because you now have a lot more clarity as to what the next year or 2 years or 3 years might look like. And then also, I recommend opening up your calendar and put on the date put on your calendar either 3 months from now or 6 months from now, maybe on a Saturday or a Sunday or sometime during the evening in the week, but put down that a date and a reminder that you're going to revise this 3 months from now or 6 months from now. This is something that should always be revised either quarterly or semi-annually to make sure that you always know what you're working on and where you're headed in your life and in your career. Now, this 3-year career plan, especially between your target position and where you are today and your 1-year goal, you're going to be translating that into your 12-month commitments, but then also if you remember in Module 4, in personal performance, in Part 3, we talked about laying out outcomes for the week, but then also laying out outcomes for the day and creating a default success schedule where you always know what you should be achieving each day. Most people focus on tasks and they create a task list where they say, I need to do this and this and this and this, and they throw literally a million things on there. And then they feel like a failure at the end of the day because they didn't achieve everything. But of course they didn't achieve everything. There's too much. So instead, all you want to do is the night before, always plan tomorrow today. Always plan tomorrow today. Always plan tomorrow today. So at the end of every night, you want to pull out your journal or wherever it is that you plan your days. And I always recommend having a journal or something to plan your days. But in that journal, ask yourself, what are the few things, what are the outcomes that must be achieved tomorrow? And always know when you're going to bed tomorrow, what are the things that you have accomplished by the end of the day? And that also gives you a sense of flexibility because that gives you the ability to move things around during the day tomorrow. But as long as you've achieved your outcomes for the day, it was a successful day. So it actually takes off a lot of stress from you. And then you also want to set outcomes for the week. So 7 days from now, next Sunday, so I always personally plan my weeks on Sunday evenings. And I ask myself, okay, by next Sunday, what are the most important outcomes and achievements that I will have completed by this time 7 days from now? And I have my life buckets. I have my 12-month commitments. I go through my buckets. I ask, what are the achievements? What are the outcomes? I lay those out. And then I begin to plan and lay out my week as to on which days do I want to achieve these different outcomes. This is so important to plan your outcomes for the week because this is why so many people procrastinate because they literally haven't planned their week and they don't know when things should be done and they're not thinking ahead. Don't be like everyone else. If you are like everyone else, then you're going to be average. And there's nothing wrong with being average, but if you don't want to be average, don't do like everyone else. Don't procrastinate. Always spend the time. Invest 20 minutes, 30 minutes on a Sunday each week. Plan out your week, your objectives, and I promise you will crush. All right, so now let's talk about crushing the next 12 months. Well, we already talked about the first part, which is the first 30 days. You're going to meet with your manager one-on-one and go through those questions and define the next 6 to 12 months. And then you're also going to want to talk to your 2 to 3 colleagues who are the best on the team or the best within the division And these are the people that you're really seeking advice and recommendations from. Now, the second thing you're going to do is, as we just talked about, you want to update your 3-year strategic career plan. So really quickly jotting back, it's this. Make sure that this is updated, it's good, and you believe that you've thought through and you know what you need to be focused on for your career and where you're headed. So then, after that, as we talked about in part 1 as well, you're going to be doing your bi-weekly progress updates to your manager. And that's going to build a really deep, strong trust with your manager. And because of that, your manager, he or her, will not micromanage you because they trust you. And the more that you have that trust, it gives you more flexibility and more breathing room. And the more flexibility and breathing room you have, the more you can focus and get done. The more you focus and get done, the more you'll outperform. The more you outperform, you're going to accelerate your career and make a lot more money and get opportunities, receive opportunities that other people don't have. Now, 4. This is a new portion that we didn't cover in part 1, and this is what I'm going to show you here. But you're going to reflect on your progress at the end of every month. So I want to show you what this looks like. So you're going to have access to this month-end reflection worksheet, and I'm going to quickly read through this so you can see what it is. So this top part is just for you. This is just for you to reflect on the month, but the bottom part, these final 3 parts, you can see you're jotting down notes and keeping track of all of your data and information so that at the end of the year, or whether it's the end of 6 months or the end of 12 months, for when I meet with my manager to discuss responsibilities and compensation. So this is where at the end of every month, you're tracking everything so that when you go to negotiate 12 months in the future, you can look back on these month-end reflection sheets and you have everything tracked for the last year. You will show up very, very well prepared for that conversation. And I promise you, you will be more well prepared than your manager, which puts you in a good position. All right, so for the first part, which is your reflection, first question is, what short-term work/projects did I achieve this month? So this is for you to keep track of what have you achieved this month. What long-term work or projects did I achieve this month? And then also you can see here I have reference bi-weekly progress updates. This month-end reflection is actually going to be pretty easy because you've already been doing this and you will already have had 2 different progress updates to reflect on, to think back on, and read through. So when you go to create this month-end reflection, most of the information is already in your progress updates. All right, so then how have I improved my team, my position, our processes, our templates, our programs, our products, our training, etc.? What have you improved in the last month? And then what other projects, teams, clients, or anything else did I contribute to that was additional to my responsibilities, and how did I contribute? Because you want to keep track of what value are you adding over and above your responsibilities. And then what went really well this month and why? This is just for you to reflect on, how am I performing? Where did I crush it? And why did I crush it? The more you're looking for pattern recognition, you want to identify trends. Why, if you did something really well, a lot of people go, nice, and then they move on with their life. They don't take the time to say, what did I do well? If you did something well, far superior to your other work, stop, look at it, and analyze it. Because I promise you, you're going to find things that you did that time that you usually don't do. And once you identify those things, you're going to start repeating them. And your work is going to jump to a whole nother level consistently. And then also, what went poorly this month and why? For the exact same reason, you want to analyze something that didn't go well so you can learn from it. Failure is not an outcome. Failure is the choice to stop trying. So a lot of people believe, if I don't do something well, I'm not good at it, I'm a failure, etc. No. Failure is when you stop trying. You always want to learn from bad outcomes. The more that you learn from bad outcomes, the better you'll get consistently. And it's also going to build self-confidence. When everyone else gives up after one bad outcome or failure, it gives you a competitive edge by default. And then, what additional skills, knowledge, or experience have I further improved or strengthened? And how have I personally developed myself? And again, this is just for you to keep track of how am I investing in myself? What skills and knowledge and experiences have I been building and developing? Because this is you adding value. This is you becoming more valuable as a human being in the marketplace. Not spiritually. This is you becoming more valuable in the marketplace. Everyone is valuable in the eyes of the creator, whatever you believe. All right. So this is the month-end reflection. And now let's go back to this and talk about number 5. So number 5 is you sitting down with your manager, whether it's 6 months from now, 12 months from now, and having that negotiation for what you believe that you're worth. Now, there's going to be a very specific way as to how I personally recommend having this sort of a conversation, how to prepare for it, what to bring to the conversation, and then how to go about making the proposal for whether it's additional compensation or for additional responsibilities or for a promotion, a title promotion, whatever it is that your goal for the negotiation is. So you're going to have 3 different sheets, and this is also the end of Module 11 here. But I'm going to walk you through these specific sheets because they all go hand in hand. So the next one, so 34, 35, and 36, so negotiation, preparation reference sheet, the performance review, and then your career advancement negotiation agenda. We're going to start with the preparation reference worksheet. So this is kind of a bullet pointed step-by-step list of things that you need to do to make sure that you're properly prepared to sit down with your manager and have that negotiation 6 to 12 months from now. So the very first thing you're going to do is you need to gather the information ahead of this conversation or ahead of this negotiation. So you're going to want to get the original job description / offer. So, and this is just something good for you to save down now. So because you just got into this position, your next position, I recommend saving the job description or the offer letter that you received that should have the job description, the responsibilities, qualifications, etc. Save that down so you do have that accessible 6 to 12 months from now. You're going to want the list of responsibilities for your position, your agreed upon standards and expectations for excellent and outstanding performance from your initial first 30-day conversation with the manager. And this is where the email that you sent your manager with those summary notes, you're going to want to have that available. And then all of your month-end reflections, which we just talked about. So you're going to have maybe 6 of these, 8 of these, 10 of these, 12 of these, whatever. And then all of your saved work / evidence of achievements and results. So one thing that I didn't talk about is here. So these bottom 3, what were my most important achievements this month? You're going to write down at the end of every month what were your most important and most valuable achievements to the team. And then you're also going to write down here, what evidence / proof of work can I show? What can I save to demonstrate and show my work later? So at the end of every month, you're going to brainstorm, okay, what were the most important things that I did? And what evidence can I start to keep track of? What can I save? Almost like you're creating like a portfolio of work so that at the end of the year, you're able to show, hey, these are all of the most incredible, valuable things that I contributed. And I believe that these are the best and most accurate representations of my performance and the value that I've contributed over the last year. So you're going to be saving documents or presentations, analyses, emails, proposals, rewards, recognitions, letters from clients. It doesn't matter. Whatever you believe is evidence or proof of work that will demonstrate the value that you added or the quality of the work that you've done over the last year. And then how did I contribute value and directly benefit the team and company this month over and above what's expected of me? So again, you're always keeping track of not just how well you're performing your direct responsibilities, but you're always keeping track of the value that you're adding over and above your responsibilities, because that's additional value that they didn't hire you for. You've been contributing that on your own. Okay, so now you're going to want to create your performance summary, and I'll go through that in a second. But you want to demonstrate that you've met and exceeded your expected responsibilities with outstanding performance, and additionally, you've contributed value to the team over and above your responsibilities, which is the final part that we just talked about here. Okay, so you're going to want to prepare questions to ask your manager, and you want to ask for both positive and constructive feedback. Sometimes people go in and they only ask for, all right, how can I improve? Well, you didn't give the manager the opportunity to reconfirm in his or her mind how well you really did perform over the last year. So that's why I always recommend start by asking for positive feedback. And then your manager, he or her, will be usually pretty glad to talk about things that you did really, really well. And assuming, and I know you will, because if you went through this program, you're that type of person, I know you're going to crush it. And give the manager the opportunity to talk about how much you've crushed it. Because again, you're setting that anchor in their mind that, yes, this is a person who has crushed it this last year. They have exceeded expectations and performed far above others. And then when you ask for constructive feedback, it reaffirms the fact that, one, you're humble. You're not, you always have room to grow, always have room to improve. And it gives your manager a way to help you, a way to contribute to you. And if all your manager does is just, play cheerleader and say, oh, you're doing great, oh, you're doing this, oh, you're doing that, well, the manager doesn't really feel like they're managing. They don't feel like they're doing their job. So you want to give the manager the opportunity to do their job, which is provide feedback, make you a better person. All right. Then you want to prepare questions for asking your manager for additional responsibility. This is a really, really important part. A lot of people go in at the end of the year and demand more money. And they say, I've done so well over the last year. I want more money. Now, of course, they don't say it that aggressively or that bluntly. Although I'm sure there are some people who are incapable of communicating. But what you want to do is the reason. So there's two different ways to value your work. Your work at the end of the year can be valued on past performance, or your work can be valued on what you're going to be contributing to the company and the team over the next 12 months. You want to be prospectively valued. You want to be future valued. You do not want to be past valued. So think about this. When a company hires you initially, they don't know anything about you, or they know very little about you. They don't know how well you're going to contribute to the company. They're paying you for the next year's work. They hire you, they expect you to work there for 12 months, and so they're determining a salary for your next 12 months of work. So when you go to negotiate at the end of the year, you don't want to be negotiating about the value that you provided last year. No. You want to be negotiating for an additional opportunity to add more value. So by asking for additional responsibility, you're assuming you've dominated the last year, of course they're going to be willing to give you more responsibility. As they give you more responsibility, you're setting yourself up to ask for additional money, because if you're going to be doing and providing more value to the team, you should be compensated for it. This is very different from how most people negotiate. Most people try to negotiate for past performance. That's great. You want your manager to know that you've outperformed and done very, very well over the last year, but you're not trying to be compensated for it. You're trying to be compensated for the next 12 months of work. And in those next 12 months, you're going to be adding a lot more value because you're taking on more responsibility. So consider asking which responsibilities you can take off of your manager's plate so he or she can focus on his or her most important work. Now, what I mean by this bullet point is your manager is trying to advance his or her career too. And so because of that, they probably also have work that they view as less important work, but then they also have work that they view as their money, their prized work. That's where they add the most value. That's how they're going to advance their career. Well, ask for the responsibility to take off some of that less important work, because that's going to be advancing your career And it's going to allow your manager to focus on what is most important to him or her. And that's super crucial because usually managers, and this is you aligning with their self-interest. By asking for work that they don't want to do or work that they, is less important to them, that's their self-interest. They want to give you that. Okay, then consider asking to lead a new project, relationship, engagement, initiative, or something else. Okay, so note you will be making an ask of your manager, a negotiation proposal, and justifying your ask with the following. So there are three main things that are going to be justifying your ask or your proposal for more compensation, a title change, or something at the end of the year. So three things justifying it. One is you exceeded expectations and achieved outstanding performance of your responsibilities over the last year. So you crushed it. You did very, very well. Now, secondly, is you contributed value to the team and company over and above your initially signed on responsibilities. And because of your biweekly progress updates and your month end, you've been tracking all of the value that you've contributed. So if your manager says, I agree, you've done very well, but what have you done over and above your responsibilities? Everything you've worked on this year was within your scope. Well, no, that's not true. And that's not true, and you can provide evidence because you've been keeping track of everything. And now, finally, is taking on additional responsibility for the next 12 months. So these three things will make it very, very difficult for the manager to not be open to discussing your proposal. Okay, so prepare your list of proposals in order of priority. So this is similar to kind of how we prioritized your offer negotiation outcomes. So example for prioritization of proposals. So maybe your first is salary and base compensation. And if they turn that down, then maybe you focus on title advancement. If they turn that down, then maybe you focus on bonus or some type of performance compensation. And if they turn that down, then maybe you focus on training and development, a stipend for training and development, stock incentives, or something. If you're taking on additional responsibility, you should be compensated for it in some way, shape, or form. If it's not an increase to your salary or a bonus, it should be in the opportunity to lead another project or to be able to attend a seminar that's expensive, but it's going to improve your personal development or something. But if you're adding more value, you should be compensated for the value. Okay. Note, if your manager won't budge, be prepared to ask the question. Now, this is a powerful question, and tonality is very, very important for this too. So, how am I supposed to stay motivated to continue taking on additional responsibility and do my best to add more value to the team and company if I'm not going to be compensated or rewarded for it? So, what you're saying here is to the manager, if I'm taking on more and I'm not going to be compensated, how am I supposed to stay motivated? And this is a real question. And it's a tricky question because it does put the manager in a tough spot. Because the manager, if he or she were in your shoes, they'd be thinking the same thing too. Why would I ask for more work if I'm not going to be compensated for it? So that is a very powerful question. If they shoot down everything, and they're not willing to budge on anything, then that's where you want to pull out this powerful question. All right, so if your manager still won't compensate you, take the additional responsibility and use your network and headhunters to get an attractive, competitive offer to then use as leverage with your own company and manager. So the reason I included this is, let's say they still won't budge on any of the proposals. You ask that question, they're still not willing to budge. Well, don't give up the opportunity to take on more responsibility. You still want to advance your career. Take that additional responsibility. Know that you're going to be undervalued for a while or you're not going to be compensated for a while, but that's okay. You already know how to go out and find any opportunity that you want. You know how to do your networking. You know how to work with recruiters. You know creative means. You know how to get offers. So go out, find additional attractive competitive offers, and bring those to your manager as leverage. Now, if your manager still won't budge after leveraging outside offers, consider taking the outside offers and begin networking for the next target position and company because your manager and your company doesn't value you. If they are not willing to compensate you or take you seriously or consider outside competitive offers, and they've literally stiff-armed you in every way, shape, and form, that should be like 7 red flags going off in your mind. That this is not a company that values me. They're not looking to invest in me. They're not looking to advance my career, or at least at the pace that I want. I need to go somewhere else and find a company and a manager who will. So again, never forget, you are a service provider. You are a business. You must do what's best for your business. All right, now prepare fair market valuation. We've already talked about that. You already know how to do that. This is in module 10. And then prepare and have the following done before meeting with your manager. So this is for you personally. You're going to want to have a personal journal with the meeting agenda and your questions and proposals ready for that conversation. And I'll show you what this looks like, but this is worksheet 36. And then for you and the manager, you're going to want the performance summary, because that's what you're going to be presenting as part of the conversation. And your manager will have the chance to look through it. But then you also want to have prepared the evidence of your most important work completed. So you're not just showing up to this conversation with nothing in your hands. You're going to have an agenda in terms of what do you want to talk about in the conversation. You're going to have your performance summary that you're going to walk through with your manager. And then you're also going to have a briefcase, and not actually a briefcase, but you're going to have, or I guess maybe actually a briefcase, but you're going to have a portfolio of evidence that demonstrates and proves the fact that you've added significant amount of value and you've exceeded expectations over the last year. And then also you're going to want your fair market value spreadsheet. Now, you might not pull this out in the conversation, because immediately bringing up that you've done a fair market valuation for the position and you believe that you're being paid less than. Now, it may be at the end of the conversation, again, if nothing is budging, they're not willing to work with you, maybe that's where you bring that out and say, I've done the research. I know that right now I am currently being undervalued. And maybe that's where you pull it out. But I would not bring that valuation sheet out first thing in the conversation, because it is a little aggressive. Okay, so now let's talk about this performance summary. So up here where we talked about create your performance summary. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to reflect on all of your month-end reflections. And at the end of the year, you're going to put together a performance review for yourself. And then you're going to present it to your manager, because you know what you've done far more than your manager. And you've also been keeping track of all the things that you've done and the value you've added over the last year. Your manager probably hasn't, because he or she has other things to do and other people to worry about. So you're going to do performance review, and then this could be, say, January of 20XX, and then this could be December of 20XX, and then position, and I mean, don't literally put 20XX, whatever year it is, put that in, and then position, you're going to want to update this to be the position that you were in during this time frame. And then you want to include what were the primary responsibilities that you agreed to when you took this position. So this is going to come from that initial conversation that you had with your manager in the first 30 days, but it's also going to come from your offer and the initial job description. And then you're going to want to include here, what were the performance expectations for excellent that you discussed with your manager in the first 30 days in that initial meeting, that initial conversation. So you're going to want to also have that email with you, because just in case they say, we did not have this conversation. Well, you're going to have that email with all the information, the summary notes, and the date, and it's going to say delivered with their email address. So you're going to want that. And then you're also going to include what were the performance expectations for outstanding. And again, you're going to have the summary notes of the information that was defined in that conversation. Okay, so now the second part, kind of underneath, these are annual summaries. So my results and achievements, performance of expected responsibilities. So you're going to be coming up with bullet points that support the fact that you did perform all of your expected responsibilities. You achieved what was absolutely expected of you. Now, you also want to include my results and achievements of additional value contributed to team and company. So this is going to be the evidence or the summary of how have you contributed value that was not expected of you. You went out of your way to add this value. So again, this is your superb performance over the last year, a summary of your outstanding performance of your responsibilities. So how you exceeded expectations for your actual responsibilities. And then this is over and above those responsibilities, the value you contributed. So then third is my investment in personal development, both inside and outside of work. You want your manager to know how have you been investing in yourself, and what skills and knowledge and experience have you been developing? Because this is going to be communicating the fact that I've become more valuable over the last 12 months. This is what I've learned, and this is what I'm capable of now doing. And then my investment in strategic relationships. Now, this, if you don't have any strategic relationships outside of the company that you want to, I would not start bringing in your own personal network, because if anything, the manager might think, oh, so you're planning on leaving me. You don't want that. So think of this as relationships that your manager knows are important and did not expect you to build. So these could be leaders within the firm or the company. These could be strategic partnerships with other companies or other clients. So think of these as relationships that would benefit my team and my manager. And you want your manager to know that you've spent time investing in and building those strategic relationships. And now everything below this, so this first page, and if you're filling this out and this runs over 1, 2, 3 pages, that's fine. But just know this is, all of these are annual. And then down here, you're going to have monthly breakdown. And this is where you're going to take all of your month-end reflections and summarize them month by month. So within each month, you're going to have my results and achievements, performance of expected responsibilities, additional value contributed, investment in personal development, and investment in strategic relationships. So these 4 are monthly, and you're summarizing all of the last 12 months of this information in this final annual part at the top. Now, is this going to take time to create? Yes. But if this is the difference between thousands of dollars or a career opportunity that you absolutely would not have had otherwise, it is so worth your time. I promise. And the other thing is, this really should not be that painful at the end of the year, because you've already been doing your bi-weekly progress updates. You've been doing your month-end reflections. And so by the end of and you've been saving all the evidence of work and keeping track of your own personal development and everything else. So by the end of the year, it's really just a giant exercise of aggregating everything and organizing everything into one final performance review. So this is the step-by-step. This is your performance review that you're going to have to present to your manager. So, and notice there's I don't have any redstone branding or anything on this, because this is something that and I would not recommend using red font color for your manager. I would make everything black. But this is something that once you fill it out, you might PDF it and send to your manager, or you might even print it off so that if it is a face-to-face conversation, you actually have this to physically hand to your manager. Okay. And now finally is the agenda. So this is something that you're only going to have in your journal. This is not something you're going to send to your manager. This is not something that you're going to have on a sheet of paper for the conversation. Like, this is only in your journal. And in the journal, you're just going to write down the 6 step-by-step that you want to focus on for the conversation. So 1 is state the purpose. So make sure you open up with communicating with the manager that, this is, you'd like to discuss your performance over the last 12 months, but you'd also like to discuss, again, performance expectations, as well as opportunity for additional responsibility on the team for the next 12 months. So future looking 12 months. All right. Then you're going to want to go through your performance summary. So That's this 35, and walking your manager through what you believe was the best accurate representation of your performance. And then you're going to want to ask the manager for his or her positive and constructive feedback. So start with positive, but then follow that by asking for constructive. And then you're going to want to ask for additional responsibility. Now, this is where you're going to need to do a little bit of brainstorming before this conversation, because you don't want to just leave it up to the manager. You don't want to say, "Well, I'd love some more responsibility. What do you think I could take on?" Don't make it the manager's job to think about what you should do in addition to your current responsibilities. And who knows, if you leave it up to the manager, they might give you something that you really don't want to do. So instead, if you remember, in Module 10, one of the parts of negotiating was eat the complexity. Eat the complexity and make it easy for the other person to say, "Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that." So instead, you're going to want to do the brainstorming and come up with ideas for additional responsibility that you could take on for the next 12 months. And even better if you can align it with his or her self-interest by knowing that it's work that they do that they don't want to do, but would help advance your career. And then 5, ask for performance expectations. So again, you're going to want to ask for what does excellent look like and what does outstanding look like. And then at the very end, that's when you want to make your proposal. So have your prioritized list of proposals prepared in your journal. And then if your manager won't budge, be prepared to ask the question, how am I supposed to stay motivated to continue taking on additional responsibility and do my best to add more value to the team and company if I'm not going to be compensated or rewarded for it? You're saying this in a very pleasant, a respectful, a sincere, a serious tone, and you're also communicating open and inviting body language. So if I were actually talking to a manager and I had to use tonality, I would say, well, okay, well, if you don't mind me asking, how am I supposed to stay motivated to continue taking on additional responsibility and do my best to add more value to the team and company if I'm not going to be compensated or rewarded for it? So the tonality is sincere, but you're still asking a tough question. So never, if you get to the point where all proposals have been shot down, don't be afraid to pull this out. All right, so after your performance conversation with your manager, always be sure to send a thank you email to your manager and with summarized details and notes from the discussion, and you're doing the exact same thing for the following year. You're getting this first part in writing where they defined what is excellent, outstanding, your responsibilities for the next year, and you're sending them the summary notes email because 12 months later, you're going to be doing the exact same thing, negotiating your value, asking for more responsibility, and advancing your career on your timeline. So this is it for Module 11, and I'm really excited for you to begin to implement this stuff because I promise you this will take your career to the next level. Fewer than 15% of professionals negotiate for their careers. So by default, if you are within that 15% that negotiates, you will naturally outcompete the majority. But through, doing the preparation, tracking your progress over the year, defining your baseline, and then knowing how far you have outperformed over the next 12 months, and then sitting down with your manager to ask for more responsibility and then make a proposal and negotiate, you will crush. So this is it for Module 11, and I'm excited. In Module 12, we're going to start diving into financial freedom. So I'll see you in Module 12.